What's good, everybody? It's your boy Big Nate. Welcome to Big Nate's Book Reviews, home of the best book reviews. And today we are reviewing Kindred by Octavia Butler. So I got my doobie right here. It is ready to be sparked, and today we smoking this one for Octavia Butler. So if you got your doobie at home, go ahead and spark that, and then we are finna get right into this. So let me get this doobie. Oh, you know what? Look, while I'm sparking this doobie, shout out Michael V, who bought me Kindred on my Amazon wish list. That was dope of you, bro. That was dope of you. And I'm going to try and get to the rest of the ones that you bought too very soon. But anyway, shout out Michael V if you want to follow in his leading pioneer footsteps. I'll have a link in the description for that Amazon wishlist. See if I got a book you like, etc., etc. But otherwise, we finna get right into this. Yeah, I'm smoking in HD now. How you like me now? Good shit. But, okay, yeah. Kindred. This book was published in 1979. While I don't think I got any like big awards, hold up. We smoking at HD. I don't know if you're trying to see my face. I think with my face, the less definition, the better probably, but. Okay, Doobie Spark. Doobie Spark. So this book was published in 1979. Yeah, I don't think it got a whole bunch of awards, but it's sort of a critically acclaimed book. It's a critically acclaimed book. It's taught in high schools and colleges across the country. It's big in like book review circles and book clubs and things like that. And it's just sort of critically acclaimed by literary critics. And it's probably Octavia Butler's biggest book, Kindred. And Octavia Butler herself is a multiple-time recipient of both the Hugo and the Nebula. Love to see our black women winning. She's just kind of like a central figure. She's a classic figure in sci-fi / African American literature, and just the doobie is in today. Let me tell you, it's the camera. That's why. Just to put it into perspective, NASA literally named that's on me. Named one of their landing sites on Mars for one of the rovers. They named it the Octavia E. Butler landing site, just to kind of give it put into perspective how big a name she is. And everyone kind of has heard of Octavia Butler before, or you've been hiding under a rock, or you a loser square. So, and if not, well, no, now you know. So okay, let's get right into the book. So Kindred is the story of this black woman named Dana, 26-year-old, on her 26-year-old birthday. She is transported back in time from LA, from modern day LA, whatever time that was, to early 1800s, basically like right before the Civil War, at the height of slavery and plantations. And yeah, so she's just kind of going back and forth in time, but mostly spending a lot of time basically just straight up trying to survive in Maryland as a black woman. Just that kind of just popped up out of nowhere, trying to get back home, spending a lot of time. It seems to be connected with her ancestors, as well as this little white boy motherfucker Rufus. You can just tell he's a bitch just from the name alone. Yeah, they are just trying to survive and basically just get back home, and that's sort of the outline of the book plot. And so what I think Octavia Butler does really well here, right? Just like in terms of what she's doing with Kindred as a book, as a novel. What I like about it is she does not hold back at all on any of the slavery stuff. It's a very accurate and faithful representation of what slave life is like. So in that respect, it's as much a piece of African American literature as any other novel. But what I like about this is it's sort of branded in this sort of like sci-fi, almost adventure sort of style, where there's this time travel component and they're trying to figure out the mechanics. There's like rules to it. But okay, so look, one of the first things that happens at the very beginning that I think is representative of the sort of tone and feeling of the rest of the book is Dana gets transported back in time, and she's just kind of hiding and like off the road. And what happens is there's like these like 8 dudes on horseback, these 8 white men on horseback, who just, if I remember, they just kind of for no reason, or just because they're bored, like basically it was not really necessary, they like bust into this house, drag this whole family out, mother, daughter, father, all that. The father is like stripped naked, and he, in this very vivid sort of way, is beaten and whipped. And that's like something I like about, or not what I like, but something that African American literature does good, especially slave narratives, is that it's like you read about, I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again, as well as in the future. You read this in history books and things like that. We know slaves were sort of beaten and whipped and hunted and sold but you don't, it's not the same as reading this, putting faces to the names, feeling what they feel, seeing what they see. So Dana's like kind of hiding. So anyway, like I said, he gets beaten and he gets whipped, and if that's not enough, like that's already, it was already like pretty crazy. And I wrote down in my notes somewhere something like, it was pretty vivid. He gets tied up with rope and is basically dragged behind the white people's horses. So just to boom, skip, that's what we're dealing with. And you realize like the fact that Dana is black makes that any of that stuff liable or worse to happen to her just because of the color of her skin. So, and that's very much the tone of the whole book. And she just gives a very, like I said before, just like a very real and accurate depiction of what slave life was like. And she just does so good too with, this is something like I've read a decent amount of African American literature and slave narratives and things like that, but this is the first time I saw something like this where she really did her research and thought this through and like paid attention to the subtle details. Because she's like we know people are whipped or whatever, it's like, okay, yeah, with like a whip, but she describes the whip as like, she just describes it, which is like this nearly 6 foot long like piece of equipment that is like low-key heavy to carry and like heavy, nearly 6 feet long, and then you have these big white dudes just putting their back into it, whipping people, and it just makes it so much more atrocious and horrendous, just like that little detail. And there's a lot of those things throughout the book, which I think is one of the things she does really good. So there's that. But another thing that she does is like, it's not just like the sort of obvious stuff where it's like people getting beat, people get whipped. It's sort of, she gives a lot of attention to like the little things of slavery, which like compared to that don't seem as bad, but they still just kind of get you. Where it's like, there was this one part where there's like moms or fathers or whatever, they're like looking at their kids, like the really young ones that are just playing, like they're too young to work in the field, so they're just playing. And it's like this bittersweet moment for them, because it's like they're happy for a minute because it's like, okay, the kids at least get to enjoy this like beautiful, or not this, but like this moment of ignorant bliss where they are just like, and yet they don't even know what's coming. They don't know what's to them. They're just human children. They're just human beings doing their things, just existing like anybody else. But then bitter, of course, because they are going to become slaves one day. And them just standing there looking at them, just sort of having this sort of sorrow watching it. So there's like things like that, and then there's also shit where it's like, there was like one of the games some of the kids were playing where like they were like auctioning each other off, and it's just like really fucked up. And one of the girls was getting mad. She's like, I'm worth way more than $100 or like whatever it was. So just little things like that. And another thing, which is honestly not like the whole book, throughout this whole thing, there's like there's terrible things happening, right? Like unjust, unfair things that are just kind of get your blood boiling, get you so mad. Like, you know, when you're reading a book and you just want to knock the fuck out of these people, it's like that. And like there's a part, there's a part where she hears a story of a slave who got freed. Who knows what he did to get freed? Probably been working for decades. In Beloved, he like works for several years to free his mom. So he's freed and he has his papers, and he gets like pulled over by white people or whatever. And they're like, let me see, tear up his papers and then sell him back into slave. Things like that just get you riled up. And there's a bunch of that, but the thing is, and I think she does this good, it sort of comes in through the tone, I feel like, is there's no outlet. You can't, part of the slave experience is you can't talk back, you can't resist, you can't stand up for yourself, even when you're like degrading and humiliating, because if you do, you pay the consequences. And part of this is actually related to like why Octavia Butler wrote this in the first place. So like, get this, actually. First off, Octavia Butler is on her grind, bro. I was reading about her Wikipedia. She motivates me. She's been writing since she was 10, asked for a typewriter when she was 10, blah, 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 working by day, going to community college by night, doing temp jobs so she could write. She was hustling, bro. She was hustling. But anyway, at one point, I think it was in a community college class actually, where this kid was like sort of ashamed or like throwing shade at his African American ancestors for being so, he said, submissive to white power. And Octavia Butler just could not really disagree more with that. So she even has a part that in this book where Dana, like, that's partly why she wrote this book. I think like she literally attributes that to that. But there's this part where Dana's like almost looking down on a slave. She's like, damn, you would really rather live like this than try and be free. Like, you'd rather live the rest of your life in these conditions as a slave than try and run away. And she's almost kind of looking down, like haughty, pretentious, like kind of feel. And then at some point, one of the slaves does try to run away. And Dana sort of shuts up about that real quick because she comes back fucked up. It's not that easy. And honestly, odds are they're going to find you. Odds are they're going to find you. And like this is another actually really good detail is one, like among a bunch of other things, because you hear about dogs, right? You hear about dogs hunting down like human beings, like black people. It's like crazy fucked up, bro. But you hear about dogs. But what doesn't come with that is the image of this runaway slave, girl slave, woman slave, who has a literal jaws full of muscle torn out of her leg by a dog. You don't think about that. And these dogs are vicious motherfuckers. So, and not to mention all the other stuff that happened. So anyway, the point being there that Dana sort of shaped up real quick on that. And this was sort of Octavia Butler's sort of argument against that student who said that, where you have to put everything in a historical context. But anyway, let me give my rating of this book, and then we're gonna move on with our day. So I'll give this book a B+, and honestly, to anybody else, I think it's probably more. The only reason it's a B+, there's nothing wrong with this book story at all. In fact, it's actually a great example of like a story to me that has nothing wrong with it. Actually, the part with her and Kevin kind of getting together, I mean, actually, no, it wasn't even that bad. I'm hating right now. But I felt like everything she did do good. I just wanted to see more of it. I wanted to see her go a little deeper with it. And, you know, honestly, I think I made that judgment before I found this out, but I think this might have something to do with it, is Octavia Butler specifically was not sort of like watered down the slavery violence. She said that she did that because she wanted to be palatable to a wider audience. And to her credit, that 100% happened. Like I said, it's taught in high schools and colleges across the critically acclaimed, blah, blah, blah. And we read on Big Nate's book reviews. But yeah, I can't help but think that if she hadn't sort of like held back, it would have been A range for me. But it's an amazing book. If you're interested in reading Octavia Butler in general, definitely this would be a good first one. Although I haven't read any of her other stuff, but I'm just telling you right now, it's a very good book. And it's her most popular. And I think the other one's like a trilogy series. So if you're not trying to get all that, do Kindred. Or if you're just interested in African American literature generally, definitely just check this out. But anyway, yeah, I think that's it for today. Follow me on Instagram at Big Nate's Book Reviews. Don't be a square. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. And thank you for watching Big Nate's Book Reviews, some of the best book reviews.